Are you registered to give the gift of life as an organ donor? Well, if you're not, you are going to be very inspired by one of our superstar authors here at Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, because Kristy Sidlar is the grateful recipient of a heart. Her heart transplant saved her life and has inspired her to be an advocate to encourage others to give the gift of life. Kristy, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you again.
Yes, it's such an honor because your story is amazing. You can see Kristy's book, Change of Heart, is her memoir behind her, and she chronicles the story of why she needed a heart transplant and then a blow by blow that's very humorous throughout the whole process with your mother and family and Facebook friends all encouraging you. And here you are, a living, breathing success story. So first, Kristy, can you talk about how having a heart transplant saved your life?
In so many ways, I think, I look back at before I had my heart condition, I was a very active, athletic, thriving woman. And having that taken away to a point where I could do a little bit of walking, I could do a little bit of work at the gym, but something that was really core to my being was taken away from me for over 20 years. And the ability to have my life back, and even in my 50s now be able to say I'm healthier and probably fitter than I've been ever in my life.
Mhm.
That is all due to a very selfless donor and her family. And I can't put into words what that means to me.
Wow, that's what chills. That's incredible because to save a life must end tragically. So nobody knows when they're going to go. But if we simply check that little box when we apply for our driver's license or renew it, um, we can save lives, because many organs can be harvested. Can you talk about the power of that, Kristy?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that was really powerful for me when I got out of the hospital after my transplant surgery and I got home. And of course, I couldn't but think about this donor and her family and everything, their grief, my joy. Almost the first thing I did when I got home from the hospital was open up my wallet, look at my driver's license, and make sure that I was a donor. I thought I was, but I wasn't sure. Thankfully, I was. But that goes to the point that it is that easy. It is so easy to check that box on your driver's license. And I think many people want to be a donor. They know the benefit of being a donor should your life end to be able to save somebody else's. And I think what most people don't know is that you can save up to 75 people. There's obviously the core organs, and that's, five or six, maybe seven. Cornea is another one, but through tissue, through skin, so many people's lives can be impacted through donors. So I think there is a much greater impact than I think a lot of people understand. And I do know a lot of people who say, of course I want to be a donor. Why wouldn't I want to do that? Why wouldn't I want to help somebody else? But they just don't get around to checking that box. And so I think it is very easy. And if you think you want to do it, check to make sure if you have or haven't, because like I said, I didn't know if I had. Um, but I, since having done more advocacy in this space, I have had a lot of people just say, I want to, but I never did. And now I have.
Oh, nice. You don't have to wait until it's time to renew your driver's license at the Secretary of State or DMV. You can just go in and do it, or can it be done by mail?
I believe there was some of the states do through an online application. Everything that I've known, you do have to go in person, but with everything being online nowadays, it's changing and it is different state to state.
Right. So people should contact or go to the website for their Secretary of State or DMV and see what's the protocol and then follow it. So, Kristy, besides saving 75 people, which is mind-blowing, what are some other benefits to being a donor?
I mean, I think one of the things about deciding to be a donor is a conversation that you can have very openly with your family. I mean, I think when somebody is a donor and somebody checks that box on their license, it does still fall to the family to make the ultimate decision. So
Oh,
there is this, forcing of a conversation with your loved ones that could seem uncomfortable. Nobody likes to have a conversation about what happens if I die unexpectedly or not. But there is some magic that happens when you have those tough conversations with your loved ones. So I think
hmm
that's, another maybe internal or familial benefit that'll happen from deciding to be a donor.
Right. Because if they get the green light from the individual who may die, then it'll be an easier decision for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. What fears might stop a person from checking the box to be a donor?
I mean, I think some people, I have had some of those conversations, and I think some people, they think it's gross, or there are some religious implications of having part of your body not go with you into the afterlife. So I think it's really probably more just a very personal approach. It's interesting. I have a friend. I mean, I have several friends who have had relatives pass away, but if one of my good friends, we had a very deep discussion about this one day, and I said, I know you lost your sister-in-law unexpectedly, and she was a donor, and so several of her organs went to multiple families. And I'd asked her, I said, have you heard from those families, those recipients? Have you heard from those families that received, or the donors, or the recipients that received the organs or tissue from your sister-in-law? And she said, yeah, we did get lots of letters, lots of, those, we understand your grief, but we're so grateful. Very similar to what I did. And I'd asked her, I said, did you ever respond? Did your family ever respond to any of those recipients? And, she said, we didn't. We appreciated hearing it, but it was too hard for us. So I think there's this aspect on both sides that it is it's a difficult decision. It's a hard situation to be in.
Mhm.
Everybody accepts it differently. I mean, but again, for anybody who can get past either the grossness of it, or maybe those aspects that might be a little bit difficult to reconcile with. I mean, I'm here because someone got past those issues.
Yes, yes, yes. And also, I've heard disenfranchised people say they didn't want to be a donor because maybe people wouldn't try as hard to save their life so they could get to those organs and save others. I've heard that.
That,
So,
that's an interesting aspect. I mean, yeah, I liken that to, I do a lot of volunteer work for the Heart Association, and with CPR being such a, great way to save somebody's life. But similarly, people, well, I don't want to perform CPR on her because I could crack her ribs. Well, I
yes.
would rather have cracked ribs than to die. So, I can respect people's thought processes. But to look at what the ultimate goal is, which is giving me something back that I was missing for 20 something years, and to not die in that hospital, uh,
Wow.
be given my second life.
Yes, Kristy. And so April is National Donate Life Month, and you have a special experience that you'd like to share in advance of that. Can you talk about it, please?
Yeah, when I got back from my surgery, I knew I wanted to write a letter to my family. And of course, I didn't know anything about the donor. I didn't know the sex, the age, the location, the situation, nothing. And I will say, writing that letter was probably, next to my wedding vows and my parents' eulogies, which I haven't had to write yet, but probably the most meaningful thing I've ever had to put to paper. And, it is this mix of, I'm so sorry for your loss, but woohoo, look what I got. I mean, it was, I rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and reread it to my family. And of course I didn't know who to send it to. So you send it to the donor organization. They then send it to the family. And I've since written, I usually write 2 or 3 letters a year, always on the anniversary, always on Thanksgiving, and, maybe some other time throughout the year if something special happens. And I do know that the donor organization has told me, we will let you know if they don't choose to receive your letters. So if they
Mm,
reject them. So I do know that my family has been receiving my letters.
mhm. Okay.
And this past February, actually on National Go Red Day, which is the Women's Heart Health Awareness Day. I got my mail and I had a letter from Donate Life, which was, was a form letter. So I'm like, well, here it goes. I'm going to get they stopped receiving your letter. So, here was this form letter that I opened, and then this fell out, a handwritten letter from my family.
Oh my gosh. How many years later, Kristy?
It was almost 3 years to the day. Uh, that
Wow.
I wanted for this day to happen. I wanted to learn more about my donor. I knew she was a female and I knew she was 37 when she died, but that was all. And I think part of the reason why it had taken so long, my donor's parents were deceased. So that would probably mostly be who would be sending a follow up to the recipient. My donor wasn't married. There was no partner in the picture, but she did have 3 children.
Oh.
And now I want to learn more about her kids. And I did get the letter from one of her aunts.
Oh.
And now the hope is that we will be able to communicate directly, but I have to get her consent to do that. So I just sent them another letter this week. And I had maybe 6 months after my surgery, I got a tattoo on the back of my neck that is my old heart rhythm, my new heart rhythm. So my
Oh.
daughter's heart rhythm and then my husband's heart rhythm. And
Oh.
where the tattoo peaks is now the letter A for Angie, which is my donor's name.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow.
If it wasn't obnoxious for me to turn around and show you my tattoo, I would do that. But it was a really beautiful moment to go back to my tattoo artist and say, I know this is a 20-second job, but can you please put a little line to make this an A?
Oh, that's
Now I can honor
beautiful.
Angie every day.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow. So, Kristy, do you ever have any thoughts, feelings, flashbacks that might have come from her spirit? That because her organ, her heart, and hearts are so symbolic of our emotional state and even our spirituality. Have you ever had any experiences that were inexplicable?
It's so interesting that you asked me that. I literally just got an email from somebody from Psychology Today last week who had seen my book. Summer
Uh-huh.
was doing some research, and she is doing a story on heart recipients and personality traits that they may pick up from their donors. So it's a very
Ooh.
relevant question.
Oh.
It's interesting. I've heard anything from people completely change what they like to eat to the personality traits. I think, I've struggled with this because I think after my surgery, maybe the months following, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I did notice some personality changes. And, I'm such a logical person that I went back to, well, it's probably the medication I'm on. Or, hey, I've just had this major life-changing, situation. And of course I'm going to be less tolerant of stupidity in my life. So I don't know, I'm really interested. One of the words that my donor's aunt used to describe Angie was she was really spunky. And I thought, well, maybe I got some of this spunk because people did notice that I was a little bit more maybe assertive and I was a little less tolerant. And less tolerant of things that I probably should have been less tolerant before. And I was just a little,
Oh.
but it is, it's interesting. And I'm really eager to talk to this psychologist to learn some of the things that she's learned about it and dive in a little bit more because I do think it's a possibility.
Wow, that is fascinating. Oh my
And I'll
goodness,
tell you
Kristy.
one other thing, and this is pretty mind blowing, and that's what again I really want to learn a little more about her. But when I came to after my surgery, of course, one of the first things I thought of is I have another human's heart in my body, and so I started to think about my donor, and I said to my husband, I said, I feel like I have the heart of a mid-30s female who may have had a little bit of a difficult life. Um, Maybe from, and in my head, I thought kind of the Appalachia, northern North Carolina. I don't know why this all came to my head. Um, but I do now know she was a 37-year-old female. So I got that part right. I don't
Mhm.
know enough about where she was from or what her background was, but that was my image when I first came to about who my
Wow.
heart may have belonged to.
Wow, that is just so beautiful, Kristy. I can't wait to hear what the psychologist says.
Yes.
Um, And so, talk about, please, how this heart has enabled you to resume your athleticism, which is one of your passions.
It's been everything. I of course went to cardiac rehab as part of my recovery. And I told them at the physical therapy place that if there's any way before my 24 weeks or my 24 sessions of physical therapy, could I get to running again? And it was probably my third to last session. And I remember the therapist coming over and said, "All right, you ready? We're bumping up the treadmill." And I could not keep the tears back. I mean, it was
Oh,
something, if you think about anything in your life that's been taken away for over 20 years.
hmm.
So I was, running a little bit more. And actually on my 6 month anniversary to the day of my transplant, I completed my first 5K and was running across the finish line with
Yes,
tears
yes, yes.
streaming down, and the announcer saying, she had a heart transplant 6 months ago. And
Oh,
I've since, done a couple mini triathlons, and I work out 6 days a week. It's just important to me. And I think one of the things that has helped me keep that motivation is truly for, now I know her name is Angie, but on my 1 year anniversary of my transplant, was trying to figure out a very specific way to honor her and her family. And I knew she would have been 38 years old on my 1 year anniversary. So I made a commitment for 38 days to exercise for 38 minutes and do a 38-second, very special meditation to her and her family.
oh, that's
And
beautiful.
since then, I cannot work out for less than 38 minutes. I don't work out every day. I work out
Uh-huh.
5 to 6 days a week. But when I do, I cannot stop before 38 minutes. And that's in honor of Angie.
Oh, that's that's so beautiful. Christy, can you please talk about your book? Why did you want to share this message and your story in your book? Which, by the way, please order Christy's book. It is amazing. You can get it at twosisterswriting.com. You can also get it in Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and anywhere you buy books online. So, Christy, what inspired you to share this in a book?
It wasn't even so much my story, although the book ended up being much more of my journey than I expected. I had a very specific revelation, which is why that's part of the title of my book, but a very specific revelation when I was coming out of the hospital and realizing that my surgery went better than normal. It was faster. My recovery was going faster. I was walking 10,000 steps in less than a month after my surgery. I mean, I was doing very, very well. And I realized that it was these multiple dimensions of wellness that I had unconsciously been focusing on.
Mhm.
I wanted people to be able to understand that surely physical and mental health are things we talk about all the time. But when you look at social wellness and spiritual wellness and financial wellness and vocational wellness, which can be hobbies and work, I had just been doing a lot of the right things. And I think when we start to focus on one or two of those, that tends to feed into two or three others. And there's this web that happens when you start to pay attention to your wellness. Um, and I ended up probably only having a third of the book beyond that. And I would like to do a second book that gets a little bit more into it from the psychology perspective. But that's really why I wrote my book, was to tell people that I was severely challenged and declining health for years. And as I was, re-emerging from that, these tools that I didn't realize I was putting in place really helped me with my recovery.
I love that you put them in the book. You have your wellness widget that enables people to assess their own situations regarding their own health and take action accordingly to improve it and prevent any kind of crisis in the future.
I do a
Very.
lot of speaking actually on that. I mean, since the book has come out, large companies like Nike and General Motors Financial have hired me to do speaking engagements. But I've talked to a lot of civic organizations, and I've spoken to book groups. And I mean, I love to be able to, sure, telling my story is great. People, there's some jaw-dropping moments in the journey that I had, but it's really trying to motivate people to look at their wellness holistically, and
Mhm.
very small incremental changes can make long lasting improvements. And I will talk to anybody who will who will have me.
Excellent. And how can people get in touch with you, Kristy?
Yeah, the best way really is through my email, which is Kristy at changeofheartmemoir.com.
And that's a website as well, changeofheartmemoir.com. So please visit that and learn more about Kristy's book. Kristy, can you talk about why you're so passionate about National Donate Life Month? Like, what should people do this month, next month, April?
Yes. Acknowledge it. I think the fact that I didn't know there was a National Donate Life Month, for awareness before this happened to me. And I think it's just being able to get people to understand that it can be a very nebulous topic. It can be something that we just don't think is ever going to apply to us.
Hmm.
And I think if we get ahead of that and we realize that I am one of thousands of hundreds of thousands of millions of stories of people who have been in a situation where they need to have a life-saving transplant.
Yes.
I'm one of 3,000 people a year who are on the heart transplant list, but kidneys, livers, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Hmm.
How many people are on the list for months, years, and some don't ever get their chance.
Hmm. So, what is your message to those who are waiting, wishing, hoping?
It can happen. I was exceptionally fortunate. I went on the transplant list on a Tuesday and I got my call the next day.
Yes,
With
amazing.
surgery the day after. So, the wait can be long, but the more we all advocate for donors to check that box and for people to be there to save lives, your life will change. Your life will
Mm,
change.
that's so beautiful. I love it. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Kristy, to encourage people to become donors?
Think about if this was your sister or your mom or your brother or your best friend who could potentially be in a situation where they're on a transplant list. Would you want this to be something you do for them?
Makes me cry. It's so
We're
powerful, but it's so hopeful and it's so sad at the same time,
I know.
you know?
Yep. We
So
we we can make a difference, one organ, one piece of tissue, one cornea at a time.
you are such an amazing example of inspiration for people, and I'm so proud that you're one of our authors. Your book is phenomenal. Everybody, please read. So, Kristy's book is extra special because if you think she has spunk, wait till you read the book because it's it's fun, it's humorous, it's energetic, and she's talking about the gravity of life and death. And so it's really engaging because it's not depressing, it's light, and it's entertaining and educational at the same time. And it also showcases the power of family because your mother and your family, they were there. And it also showcases the magic and miracles that happen with excellent medical care. And what a blessing, because Kristy's team was just outstanding. Even during the moments where you were struggling to like drink the stuff for the test, but again, you made it fun.
Uh,
So,
yeah, yeah, there were lots of stories. Well, and it's funny, just speaking of family, as I have spoken at book groups, I've had people, husbands of, usually book groups are women. I've had husbands come to me and say, "Can I meet your husband? He just sounds cool." So I
oh,
actually we've made friends because of Dave and how cool he is in the story, because people read this like he was just the greatest guy.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's me being able to showcase what a really strong marriage and a great partner can mean to somebody's recovery was really important to me, because he was the star of the show.
Dave was a rock star. He brought treats for the nursing staff and he was amazing. And he was so attentive to you and so supportive. It was just like, if you want to say hashtag relationship goals, read Kristy's book and read about Dave. He is
100%.
Yes, it's so what the vows say about in sickness and in health. You two totally exemplify that. It's so beautiful and
Yeah.
inspiring.
I'm a
Yeah.
fortunate wife. I am a fortunate wife.
Yes, Kristy. And we are so excited to hear all the next steps on your story because you're going to learn more about Angie and you're going to talk about the psychology of being a heart transplant recipient, which is fascinating. And then I wish you the best on all your speaking endeavors that are coming up where you can share this message from stages everywhere. And Kristy, any final words?
No, just thank you for continuing. I mean, this is, 3 years of the journey that we've had together. And I really
Mm,
appreciate you for
yeah.
continuing to get the word out, not just about my book, and it's not about the sales of the book. It's about being able to help people change their lives and look at their wellness differently and maybe get a chuckle here or there with some crazy stories. But I really am here to help people with their fitness goals and their wellness goals and becoming who they know they can be, but may have some obstacles in the way.
Excellent, Christy. Well, I'll put your contact information here so that people can reach out, invite you to speak, ask questions, get some guidance and inspiration. Okay.
Great. Thank you so
All
much.
right. You're welcome, Christy. Thank you so much for joining us here on Book Talks. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins with Two Sisters Writing and Publishing. So honored that Kristy Sidlar is one of our amazing authors with her book, Change of Heart. So please order your copy today. Order it as a gift for anybody that you think might enjoy it, which is everybody. And we look forward to hearing your feedback. You can drop us a comment. You can email me at twosisterswriting.com. And you can also contact Kristy. So we wish you happy reading, change of heart. All the best.